Good morning. I'm Pastor Dale Dingwell of Ridgecrest, New York, and this is the end of month summary for our Bible studies for April. We begin by asking a question. How do you govern an ungovernable people? This question forms the theme that drives our entire study of Scripture this month. Now, we pick up the narrative of Scripture in the 3rd chapter of Judges. And if you remember, the time of the Judges is a time before Israel had any formal government. They had escaped their captivity in Egypt. They had made their way through the wilderness, and after 40 years, they finally come into their own place and have the potential of realizing the promises of God. Unfortunately, they are stiff-necked and rebellious, rejecting God's will and God's ways almost from the very beginning and continually throughout their history. So we arrive at a place where there is, in essence, no government, and any semblance of government is only derived from loose relationships of tribe, clan, and family. But almost never is there a time when they act as a single, unified people. Now, the theme of Judges is really just, or best echoed in Judges 21:25, which says, "In those days there was no king in Israel, and everyone, I mean everyone, did what was right in his own eyes." So what that is in effect saying is that whatever seemed expedient or practical or necessary at the moment, regardless of God's will, regardless of potential consequences, whatever they wanted to do, that's what the people did, both individually and collectively. So the Lord, of course, is going to work to end this rebellion and bring his people back into fellowship and relationship. And to tame this rebellious spirit, the Father graciously withdraws his hand of protection. So it is that the people find themselves falling victim to their own wishes. Almost, thy will be done. And as their neighbors begin one assault after another, attack after attack, even occupying parts of their land, there is an ensuing season of hardship. The people, feeling both oppression and poverty, they cry out to God, and the Father would respond. He sends someone, a judge who will exercise power and authority to rescue the Israelites, to bring about a season of peace. We would think that this would change the hearts of the people, but such hope is unfounded. The people never seem to learn. And so there's this repeated cycle of affliction, oppression, crying out to God, God's rescuing through the judges, more than a dozen. But there's no change in the hearts or in the behaviors of Israel. From the text of Judges, we move on to the ages of the great kings. And it is the text of 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, and 1 Chronicles that guide us through this study of the kings. In 1 Samuel, we see the prophet Samuel, for whom the book is named. He's actually the last of the prophet judges. And he, at one point, is commissioned to anoint a king over the people. Now, God the Father warns Israel. He warns them that they will pay a heavy price for rejecting God as their king and installing a human and his government. But they still want to be like their neighbors. So they cry out to God, and God answers. And the man who is chosen to rule, he certainly looks the part. Young, tall, and handsome, Saul also comes from the smallest tribe, Benjamin, implying that Saul will have to build a coalition government if he is to rule. But unfortunately, Saul is weak in faith, and he's too much of a people pleaser to rule effectively. He goes on to, in essence, lose the crown to someone whose heart is akin to that of the Lord, a man by the name of David. Now, David emerges as an unlikely choice. He's the youngest brother of a family of shepherds, and yet he demonstrates both faith and courage very early on. This causes Saul to quickly realize a perceived threat to his throne. And after a long and tiring pursuit followed by a terrible bloody civil war, David finally establishes his own dynasty. Yet even David, as godly a man as he is, he struggles with his own demons. But what is singularly unique about David is his penitent spirit and his desire to be in right relationship with God. We are privileged to have some insight into the inner workings of David through his poetry, known as Psalms. And it's unique in letting us see what's going on inside the protagonist of this story. When we leave this text in 2 Samuel, we see David near the end of his reign, and he's actually beginning to set the stage for his successor. With that, I wish you well, and I pray that you will discover the Father's blessing in his living word.